Every week, NFL teams battle for a victory. The members of the roundtable battle to rank the top 10 teams in the NFL. Guests bring their arguments and defend their top 10. Hosted by Thomas Brown, this is the Rankings Roundtable.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Week 5's edition of the Rankings Roundtable show. I am your host, Thomas Brown Jr., and I'll host all this chaos of what was Week 5. And in case anyone missed last week's show, just to clear something up, the shades represent the guilt and shame that comes with being an Eagles fan these days. So until the conclusion of Week 6, I will continue wearing these shades until the Philadelphia Eagles get it together. Understood? Okay. All right, here we go. My man in Minnesota, he's enjoying those undefeated Vikings, covering all things Minnesota. Steve, how you doing, my man? How are you?
How's it going? Yeah, I should have almost put my shades on because it's just such sunny times over here in Minnesota.
I don't know if it's sunny times or something that's legal in some states and not in others, but I digress. Whatever one works for you. Now, this guy happens to cover the same team in my division. And trust me, he's not a fan of them, honestly, more than he would like to tell you in his articles. But, Greg, how you doing, my friend? How are you?
I'm doing all right. Thomas. How about you?
I'm doing great.
I see you're wearing the shades. And is it just out of sheer not wanting to see tears coming out of your eyes, or what? Is that what it is?
No. We went over this, okay? I told the audience these shades are only for the guilt and shame. You can put it in the comment section. Guilt and shame of being a Philadelphia Eagles fan these days. So until the conclusion of Week 6, where they show some sort of, I don't know what to call it,
Light
up to beat the
Light.
Browns.
Light.
Oh, yeah, that part. That's if I can see that, then the shades come off. But until then, I'm keeping these on, and I take a lot of pride in saying it. Okay.
All right.
So, Week 6 was a very interesting week. One could definitely say, and we got some top 10 lists to look at. Steve, I want to ask what your top 10 list was, why they're there. Just break it down for me, shall you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want me to start from the top or the bottom, but obviously from the top, the two undefeated teams, because they're undefeated, they got to be at the top. One is the reigning, two-time defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, obviously with the Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce trio. They're all there. The band's still all together. So they're just going to try and see how far they can keep the train rolling down the tracks and how many they can collect along the way. But frankly, they haven't had to face the level of competition that the Vikings have, and they have not looked that great in getting the 5 wins that they have. So I have the Vikings ahead of the Chiefs because they are outperforming and outclassing the opponents that they are facing, who are the cream of the crop of the supposed Super Bowl contenders, the likes of the San Francisco 49ers, the Houston Texans. And I believe that along the way of the preseason that people were expecting that Aaron Rodgers was going to magically resurrect the New York Giants into a Super Bowl contending team with a repaired Achilles tendon at 40. Good luck with that. After losing to the Vikings, they lost their coach. He's been fired. So at this point, that's what is left of the NFL. And teams that come up against the Vikings are risking losing their head coach at this point. So the Vikings are the number 1 team in the NFL, best team in the NFC, best record in the NFC, and tied for the best record overall with a better defense than the Chiefs have And that's where the strength lies, is not just the fact that they're putting up 27 points, which is the top 5 offensive perspective, they're top 5 in defense as well. So they're not letting teams into the end zone. They have, in fact, more interceptions than they have allowed touchdowns. Vikings are number 1 all day. We've got the upstart Washington Commanders representing the NFC East leaders. Yes, that's right. Is anyone here? Let me repeat that. The Washington Commanders are leading the NFC East. I'm as surprised as anyone, but Jaden Daniels looks like every bit of the Rookie of the Year and the next, next CJ Stroud, I guess, coming in as a rookie and just setting the league on fire. It's just people are going to have to start getting used to things like that occurring. Some guys are just ready right out of college to put the game in motion. NFL moments are not too big for them. Jaden Daniels is proving that. And the Washington Commanders are an absolute threat to the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys this year. And then obviously you've got Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens with Derrick Henry running all over the league. And they're my number 4 team. The Detroit Lions were supposed to be running away with this NFC North division. And yeah, they're in it, but they're still looking up at the Minnesota Vikings. And you've got the Houston Texans, again, are doing well and are still likely to make playoffs in the AFC, but took a big hit losing by 27 points to the Vikings. Now, amazingly, the NFC North reign continues as a 3rd team pops up on my list. Yes, that is the Chicago Bears at number 7, as they're starting to find momentum, and Caleb Williams is starting to find his footing in the NFL as the number 1 draft pick who's been thrust into the starting position. Maybe too early, maybe not, but they're a system on the fly gelling as the season goes on, and we'll see where they go, because again, this is the bear of the NFC, being the NFC North, having to go through teams like the Packers, the Vikings, and Lions all year long. It's going to be a rough start for this year for the Bears. But anyway, they're doing just fine. They got to win. 3 teams from the NFC North are in my top 10. Atlanta Falcons put on a show going toe-to-toe with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and walked away with the win. Kirk Cousins looks incredible, throwing for 500 yards. And then somehow the Broncos make my list because they are also getting wins and have a positive record, 3-2. Closing out my list is the Packers. Wait, is that all 4 NFC North teams right now in the power rankings? Yes, that's right. One division has all 4 teams in the power rankings.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Sure as hell make this entertaining, Steve. I love it. All right. Greg, what does your top 10 list look like, man? What we got here?
All right. I have the 2-time defending champions at number 1. Until somebody beats that team, they remain number 1. The Vikings are 2, the Lions are 3, the Texans 4, and then that awful city, that a horrible city. That the Commanders are at 5. It's horrifying. I've got the Packers at 6, the Bills at 7, and see, I'm even showing love to your Philadelphia Eagles, the team that you're hiding your face from. I've got the Buccaneers, and then I've got the Falcons at 9 and 10 there. So that's pretty much my list of the top 10 teams.
Okay. All right. Well, Greg, Steve, y'all got some interesting lists. I'm not even going to lie to you. I have so many things to ask, and so many honest questions too. None of these are out of the norm or whatever the case may be. This is just the way the show is ran. Okay, Steve, let me make sure I get this straight. You have Baltimore over Detroit. Why is that?
I believe that they just have a more complete unit and system from head to toe with the coaching and Harbaugh and Lamar and Mark Andrews and now Derrick Henry running the ball. They've got a more complete system put together to run the way that their coaching is trying to have them do. I think they've been on the verge for a while now, on the cusp, and Lamar's a multiple-time MVP. He's got the talent. It's clearly there. I think it's kind of their time. And not to take anything away from Detroit. Detroit is awfully talented and just as good. I just think that the Ravens are just a little bit further ahead in general, and also the AFC right now is not as tough of a division. So that's why I have the Ravens slightly ahead of the Detroit Lions.
Huh. Okay. Wow, that's interesting. Greg, you have the Commanders below the Texans on that.
They're both 4-1, are they not?
They are.
And who has Washington actually played against? Who has Washington actually played against?
That's what we're using. Okay.
You got to go by who they're actually playing and things like that. I mean, come on now. The Commanders, of course, are a team that I can't stomach very much, but of course, they're still alive, unfortunately. But again, this week they got to play the Baltimore Ravens, and that's gonna be a very, very difficult game for them.
Okay. Steve, I got to go back to you again. You have, I want to make sure I didn't make this up. I'm looking at my notes here. The Bears and the Broncos ahead of the Packers?
Well, as much as I am fanning my entire NFC North, the Packers are the team I kick the can down the road the furthest in the entire NFL, as it is a border rivalry that just the way it is. When you bleed purple, there is no room for love for the Packers, just the way Greg has no love for the Commanders or the Eagles from his own division, even when they're better teams. Now, anyway, that just is how it is, and the Packers are nice and they're fun, and Jordan Love is cute and all those things, and LaFleur and yada, yada, yada. But they're honestly coming up almost last in the division. I think the Bears might just get by them this year. But they're bringing up the third and fourth leg of the division, or of the NFC North.
And unlike what you just said, I've already got a list that has the Eagles on my list. So do I hate them? No.
Well, yes. I do.
No, see, I put Thomas's Eagles right on my list. See, I got no problem with that. And they're, they had the bye week and all that jazz, and they're 2-2, and the Cowboys are actually in second place currently. But again, my Cowboys don't belong on the top 10 list. They don't belong there.
Oh, coming from a Cowboys fan, that's very interesting.
Coming from a level-headed Cowboys fan, most Cowboys fans live in this, the Cowboys can never do no wrong, even when things are clearly wrong. Greg is a rational Cowboys fan and sees the forest through the trees.
Okay. Steve, I gotta ask you. The Bears over the Falcons. Where was your head at when you decided to put the Bears, who are struggling to get consistency in their passing game by having not a whole lot of instances where Caleb Williams is throwing over 200 yards, an offensive line that's struggling to protect Caleb? They're barely getting by in these games, but you have them over the Falcons. Why is that?
The Falcons have not looked that much more impressive than the Bears have either, outside of the this performance against the Buccaneers. And it was a shootout matchup that took everything that they had to get 500 yards from Kirk Cousins and their offense to finally come to life. It's one game. If they have done it the other 4 weeks that way, I would maybe have it the other way around. But I think the Bears just are slightly more able to figure it out than the Falcons are. I think that was kind of more of a fluky thing that occurred there than with the Falcons. I think they still have some learning curves to straighten out, and they've got plenty of talent all over. But I've got the Bears just one spot ahead of the Falcons this week.
Okay. All right. Well, we're about to head into halftime, ladies and gentlemen. And we're about to head to a commercial break. This is Week 5's edition of the Rankings Roundtable show, and we'll be right back.
You are watching Team NBS Media. We are a digital media brand covering sports, entertainment, and lifestyle, with team members all across the country. Through our written content, podcasts, and video content, we bring you fresh and professional content. Interested in joining the team? Shoot us an email or DM. Make sure to like, share.
In 2006, we founded Yeti Coolers with a simple mission: build the cooler we use every day if it existed. One that was built for the serious outdoor enthusiasts rather than for mass discount retailers. One that could take the abuse we knew we'd put it through, out in the field and on the water. One that simply wouldn't break. We decided early on that production innovation would come from necessity and first-hand experience, not from market research and data analysis. Today, Yeti products perform when it matters most. Whether that be an excursion into the remote Alaskan wilderness, chasing redfish on the Gold Coast, or just getting together with friends in the backyard, we make gear that helps you stay out longer, travel farther, and live harder. Hashtag built for the wild.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Rankings Roundtable show. I am your host, Thomas Brown Jr. I have Greg, the Dallas Cowboy fan there is over there. It's always good to see you, Greg. And then we have, representing the undefeated Minnesota Vikings, we have our lovely friend Steve here. But now that they got their top 10s out the way, and sure, there's some questions over there, but let's bring up my list, shall we? Let's see what we have here. Okay? This week, we saw the Kansas City Chiefs have a lot of fun with not a whole lot of toys to play. Kansas City Chiefs, let me put in the perspective of how well they performed this year. Their last 7 regular season games, they have lost a turnover battle. And you guessed it, they've won every single one of them. If that doesn't show dominance as the top team in the NFL, I don't know what does. Next, I have the Minnesota Vikings. It's kind of unbelievable to put into words when your team has only been down for 4 minutes in an entire season so far. It's kind of bizarre. It's kind of insane. But it speaks to how well they're playing complementary football on both sides of the ball. It's very impressive. I gotta love it. I gotta love it. Next, we have the Detroit Lions. It's always good to have one good running back, but the Lions are blessed to have 2. Okay? Montgomery and Gibbs have averaged 65 plus yards per game and 7 touchdowns combined. So they're finding the end zone. They're getting the yardage to get close to the red zone, and they're being productive in the process. I know they're on a bye week, so it wasn't like they had a whole lot to show for it, but they're still 4-1, and they're still one of the best teams in the NFL right now. Next, I have the Washington Commanders. This team, I gotta say this as an Eagles fan, this is definitely scary to see, especially when this is something that we were doing predictions or preview shows. about the entire NFL before this season started. It was kind of crazy to say then, but I had the Commanders as second in the NFC East. Apparently, I'm wrong because they're number one right now. Now, obviously, we know we still have a good chunk of the season left to play. But to be a team that has 30-plus points in the last 3 games and to be number one in points per game by dropping 31 and being third in yards per game. So not only are they putting points up, but they're getting a lot of big-time plays also. And oh, by the way, they still have that guy, that rookie, that guy that everybody says is too small. You know, oh yeah, they still have Jaden Daniels. And yes, he did throw an interception. Oh my God, he finally did a rookie thing for once. But he is still having one of the highest completion percentages out of the entire league. I don't know what else there is to say. They're at 4. Texans, I have them at 5 here. Now, obviously, they went toe-to-toe with the Bills. You could say that maybe they should have put them away early. Maybe C.J. Stroud could have done better and things of that nature. I don't blame you. But I will say, after last week's game, C.J. Stroud did have 8.7 yards per attempt. So every time he threw the ball, it was a guaranteed first down. That within itself, and let's not mention 331 yards, and he still got a touchdown on the board. So it's not like he was completely erratic, I should say, I'm sorry. And also, to add to that, 6 receivers last week had 30-plus yards. So not only is C.J. Stroud throwing it to a Stephon Diggs or to a Tank Dell all the time, even though they did get more volume with Nico Collins hurting his hamstring, who is now being placed on IR, will be out for 4 weeks. He's getting it to everybody still, which I think goes to show just how impressive C.J. Stroud has been, that no matter what it looks like, he finds a way every time. No matter what situation it is, no matter how many picks that was thrown, no matter how many missed throws he had, he finds a way to dot him up every time. It's impressive. 6, I have the Ravens. They're starting to catch fire. 29.4 points per game, which is second in the entire NFL. Yeah, so remember those first 2 weeks where they were struggling to put the ball in the end zone? Yeah, that's not an issue no more. They're number 1 in yards per game. So whenever they get the ball on offense, just know they're going to march down the field. Or as, the oldies would say, matriculate the ball downfield. Okay? That is very impressive. And Lamar, yeah, I know the Bengals defense is quite trash, quite ass. There's so many ways you can use to describe the Bengals defense. One of them is not good necessarily. To have 348 passing yards and 4 touchdowns, though, can't really act like that didn't happen. And I know I just trashed the Bengals defense. They did hold Henry most of that game to practically nothing on the ground. But I have them at 6. 7, I have the entire Thursday Night Football matchup from last week. Seriously.
Well, that's what I did. That's what I did at 9 and 10.
So starting off with the Falcons, Kirk Cousins. Now, I know we are accustomed to him being this guy that struggles in prime time. Now, a large majority of his career, you could say that is definitely the case. But I don't know what's going on in ATL. Maybe it's the wings down there. Shout out to Lou Will. I don't know what it could be going on in ATL. The swag surf. I don't know what it could be. But for whatever reason, Kirk Cousins in the clutch, might I add, under primetime lights, turns into Tom Brady and Joe Montana combined. I don't know what's going on with that this year. I think that's what makes this entire season bizarro. The fact that Kirk Cousins is performing this well and is leading the wins in primetime games. It's unbelievable. Drake London also had 12 receptions, 154 yards, and a touchdown. My God. That Falcons offense, I hope we get to see more of that. I think that's why I have them at 7 right now. But if they can continue the way that they did on Thursday night, look out.
Yep.
I have the Bucs at 8. Now, look, I understand they lost, but it's hard to dispute the fact that Baker Mayfield is still playing well. 19 of 24, 3 touchdowns, 180 yards, 137.5 quarterback QBR. Okay, so just to put in perspective of how well he's done throughout this season, he's thrown 11 touchdowns to just 2 interceptions with 112 QBR. If that doesn't scream impressive, I don't know what does. Baker is literally doing what he can to get the job done for the Buccaneers. And he's honestly kind of one of the main reasons why they're 3-2 right now. So I have the Bucs at 8. 9, I have the Packers. Now, I would like to say that their defense is coming along at a very alarming rate. They had 3 sacks last week. But this is the stat that got me. 10 QB hits. They were treating Matthew Stafford like he was a piñata on stilts. That's what I saw from the Green Bay Packers. It just, every time he turned around, he just got hit. He went to the ground. He went to the ground again. Next thing you know, where's Matthew Stafford? On the ground. He's not even calling the plays no more. He's too busy tasting the grass. Because that's all Sunday was about. Just tasting grass from Matthew Stafford. Also, Jaden Reed has been spectacular as a deep threat for Jordan Love. 75 plus receiving yards in 3 of the 5 games so far. I mean, it's a sight to behold. They're getting a lot of big plays down the field, and Jordan Love to Jaden Reed connection is making that happen. 10, I have the Cowboys. They played a little bit better defense, so I can call them the Dallas Cowboys this week.
Congratulations.
Yes, I appreciate that, Greg. It took some time, but, now I don't know how much I want to give credence to the fact that they played Justin Fields, but the fact that they played against Justin Fields, who's been playing relatively well, you can get the Dallas Cowboys name back. I think that's fair.
That's very generous of you, Thomas. I'm very impressed to see you having the Cowboys on your list. I'm very impressed. Now they did play much better on the defensive line, minus Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, because they stood up and played their damn lanes. They stopped Justin Fields from running the football and Najee Harris, et cetera, et cetera. This is what football is supposed to be about. It's not about the quarterback sacks, kids. It's not. It's not about the sacks. Chauncey Golston and Tyrus White had a half a sack each. That's it. Everybody else stayed in their bloody lanes, and it was a beautiful thing to watch.
Well, I mean, I won't take that away from you, which is why, like I said, y'all have the Dallas Cowboys moniker back this week. Okay, it's just not often that I get to see, good, consistent defense outside of last year or something like that. Anyways, to go back to that,
they were only a top 5 defense last year, but that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. We won't talk about that too much.
Okay. All right.
But to talk about Sunday night. Dak, I know everybody's crapping on him for the 2 interceptions, and rightfully so, but he did have 2 touchdowns, 352 yards, and 8.4 yards per attempt. So
And
say what you want.
And he was finding guys not named CD Lamb. Oh my goodness. Oh.
Yeah. So he is getting that offense involved, which is not something that I would expect on a consistent basis without CD Lamb. But hey, what do I know? I'm just an innocent bystander being a fan of this team.
He's only second in the league in passing yardage. I mean, he's just second. I mean, that's all.
Ain't nothing crazy. So Monday, we saw that. Oh, I'm sorry. Yesterday, forgive me. Robert Saleh was let go. In case you missed it, Jets head coach gone after a ugly start to the year, one could say. And he's fired. And I will get to my rant in a second. But Steve, what are your thoughts on Robert Saleh being relieved of his duties in New York?
Well, I mean, it's slightly surprising, but at the same time, it's not that surprising. I mean, it is the New York Jets after all, and they're organizationally just haven't really been able to piece it together or figure it out. They've drafted several quarterbacks and haven't made any one of them work out. Sam Darnold couldn't work out there. Well, look at him now. Zach Wilson couldn't work out there, and now Aaron Rodgers suddenly looks like he's on the field seeing ghosts. Maybe it's just a New York Jets quarterback thing, wearing that uniform. You just can't be a good quarterback. I don't know. But I don't think it's Robert Saleh's fault. He's the one, unfortunately, that sometimes when you're labeled as the HC, you get to be the one who falls on the sword and takes the blame for things that may not be your fault. So here we are. Robert Saleh is the first coaching victim of the 2024 season. I don't think he will be the last.
So you think that it's him being gone is not the way to go, correct?
I think it does kind of seem abrupt and might have been a premature maneuver and maybe a bit too soon, a bit too twitchy. But at the same time, it sounds like the ownership says that this was something he was ready to do on his own before. It had nothing to do with anything else occurring. It was internal and personal. So maybe that is what it is.
Okay. Greg, what's your thoughts on Robert Saleh being fired?
Well, Saleh actually should have been gone after last season. But again, the Jets said, okay, well, we didn't have Aaron Rodgers last year and He was never put in a good enough position by Joe Douglas, the GM. I don't think the offensive line restructuring that they did this year has worked out for them very well. I mean, Moses is already out. The Jets' biggest issue, though, is that 40-year-old quarterback of theirs. Aaron Rodgers, 10 seasons ago, yeah, he could flip a football better than anybody. He can't do that anymore.
Nope.
How many passes did he throw on Sunday?
It wasn't a lot.
I think it was 50, 51 or something like that.
Yeah.
You've got Breece Hall and Braylon Allen in that back 52 passes. That's right. So 52 passes by Aaron Rodgers. You have Breece Hall and Braylon Allen in your backfield. If you people don't follow the draft the way that I do, Breece Hall coming out of Iowa State was a fantastic running back, but Braylon Allen is a 20-year-old kid from Wisconsin who could just be so damn dynamite. I don't understand why Nathaniel Hackett still has his OC job in place, because this guy keeps deferring to Aaron Rodgers and throwing the football. When you've got two running backs that are as good as what Braylon Allen and Breece Hall are, you should be running the damn football. I don't care who they were. I don't care it was the Vikings. You beat the blitz. You beat the blitz by the run. That's how you beat a blitz.
Best run defense, 74 yards a game.
Yeah, but you beat that blitz through the run. That's how you beat teams that blitz you, is you run on them.
But that team that's blitzing is giving up the second fewest running yards per game at 74.
I don't care. I just said I don't care who they are, Steve, whether they're the Vikings or not. That's how you attack those teams, is through the ground. It's not through the air, because your guy is going to be under pressure. And what did Aaron do? Throw 3 interceptions. You have to be a good, solid ground game. And when you've got Breece Hall and Braylon Allen in that backfield and you're not using them, you're just going to kill yourself. That's it.
Another advantage of being able to play from ahead. Teams can't run. They have to throw the ball to catch up.
Well, gentlemen, y'all going to have to excuse me in advance because I have a lot of things to get off my chest about Robert Saleh being gone as head coach. And I'm pretty sure everyone loves to hear it. Let me tell you something. I would totally understand letting him go if they sat up there and was struggling on defense. I would understand if he was saying endless things on the podium to start any type of fire going on between Aaron Rodgers and him. I would totally get it. PR stunt included, I would totally get it. I know everybody likes to bring up his record, 20-36. Now, sure, you could say maybe like out of the 5 seasons he was there, maybe the first 2 he could have done something. Oh, wait. Who is able to get anything out of Zach Wilson? No one. That's why he's on Denver's bench today. But yet, his side of the ball, the defense, has been in the top 5 3 of the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Top 5 this year, actually, in case anyone was wondering.
Yeah.
So, what I'm ultimately saying here is we have so many teams in the NFL where their head coach doesn't have an identity. And in one way, shape, or another, they may mess around and be fired because they don't have that identity. Even the bad teams have a head coach that has an identity. Brian Daboll, he's an offensive genius. He just has Daniel Jones as his quarterback. Antonio Pierce, as much as y'all want to shit on him today, and I don't blame you, at least his defense plays very hard on every snap. I will say that about Antonio Pierce's defense. Oh, how about Sean Payton? Oh, yeah, doesn't have a whole lot of talent, but he's an offensive genius. It's an identity. To this day, as an Eagles fan, I still don't have a sure identity on what Nick Sirianni is as a head coach. And if you point at either side of the ball, I can tell that he's doing it. Because they're ass offensively, and they're ass on defense too. So just by that alone, he should be fired if that's the case. But no one knows what he's good at. He doesn't have an identity. How about even the guys that don't be a part of the X's and O's? What about them? Oh, I don't know. How about Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh being the most tenured head coaches in the entire NFL to date? They're not on the X's and O's. Maybe Tomlin and Harbaugh call a defensive play every once in a while. But that's not all that they do. They motivate the team. They're culture builders. They establish a physical mentality on their rosters every year. Again, identity. The Jets' identity with Robert Saleh was that we was going to dominate on defense, and we was going to let whoever is in charge of the offense figure it out. Just don't throw the game away. That was his only deal. And then they end up finding out that Zach Wilson as their quarterback, they wasn't doing a whole lot of winning or, the quarterback not screwing up for them. Just didn't work out that way. So you think, it's just Aaron. They just need to get somebody like Aaron Rodgers. Get a veteran. Then his Achilles popped last year. So you had to go back to Zach Wilson again, extending this 20 and 36 loss record that everyone was talking about so much. I'm sorry. Is he in charge of play calling offensively? Last time I checked, that's Nathaniel Hackett. The guy who got ran out of town in Denver. That guy, yeah. He is the offensive coordinator last time I checked.
Because he's Aaron's favorite guy.
I'm aware of that. But last time I checked, do you want to win or do you want to have familiarity? And as we're going to get into about Davante Adams in a little bit, which one do you ultimately want? Do you want to be familiar with someone and lose? Or do you want to do the right thing and win regardless of who's there and you make some shit shake? I thought that's how it always worked. I thought everybody wanted to win. Now we want to be buddy because, that's the only one I'm comfortable with. Doesn't even give me the greatest performance, but that's who I'm comfortable with as my offensive coordinator, and he stays. Okay, I'm supposed to understand that. And you're probably thinking, that was last season. What's going on this year? Aaron Rodgers' QBR rating as of today is 87%. That's his QBR today. Zach Wilson, that guy that everybody was shitting on so much last year, and everybody, I do mean everybody because that included me. That was a lot of fun. But that was a lot of fun. Good times, by the way. But do you know that he has a 76 completion QBR? QBR. So I find it interesting that the one thing that kept y'all viable and relevant, which was the defense, has been top 5 for the 3 of the last 5 years. But yet, he's the one that gets let go. I mean, seriously, tell me when I'm telling lies. Make it make sense. And we're about to get into Davante Adams in a second. But if I'm Davante Adams, with a logical mind and a very objective mind, why the hell would I come to this shithole?
Bingo.
Who would want to be a part of this? And ultimately, and I would like to ask you, gentlemen, as Davante Adams is looking for a trade, they're still trying to iron that out, probably in large due to his contract. Where do you think he lands, and what's your thoughts on the whole trade situation, Greg?
If Davante Adams has a brain in his head, he does not want to go back to Aaron Rodgers and all that nonsense. If he had a brain in his head, he would choose the Washington Commanders to go to. I'm telling you, the Commanders have the salary cap space for him. There's no issue there. And Terry McLaurin, along with Davante Adams, that becomes a very frightening Washington Commanders offense. That becomes an absolutely frightening offense. That's where I would go.
Okay. So you got the Commanders. All right, Steve, what's your thoughts, man?
Aside from going along with agreeing wholeheartedly with Greg there that the Cowboys probably is the absolute perfect landing situation if you're looking for all things considered for a Devontae home. I don't think either of the reunions to his former quarterbacks is going to be where he then would actually work out. I don't think it's going to work out in New Orleans with Derek Carr. And I certainly don't see it working out with the New York Jets, who don't seem like they have a clue of going anywhere right now. And it's not just because of Aaron Rodgers. It's because the dysfunctionality of the entire organization. They don't know and have a clue of how to handle and operate themselves as a proper organization of any kind of winning. If you want to look, just look no further than them not even having Kevin O'Connell make it to his chair before they're releasing him. Hey, thanks for coming in. Have a nice day. Here's your cup of coffee. Don't sit down. Don't get comfortable. We're going in other directions. They're so cold and heartless and don't have a clue of what they're doing and don't have an understanding of what winning is. Can anyone tell me the last time a New York Jet developed or had a quarterback that was considered a franchise quarterback since, I don't know, the Joe Namath of the 1970s? That's right, they haven't, because there isn't one. They've had the butt fumble Sanchez. They've had was Tim Tebow took a drink there maybe? I don't know. They've never had an established quarterback since forever. That's their problem. The Jets can't figure anything out, and you want to go landing there? No, Davante Adams wants nothing to do with that. In fact, I would be bold to say Davante would be much rather and much happier, just like his former teammate Aaron Jones, joining the purple festivities here in Minnesota. Not that I'm saying that that's the landing destination. I'm just saying if he wanted to actually go somewhere that's winning and fun to be and a culture of winning, it would be here in Minnesota. But aside from that, I actually have a theory that I think Davante Adams ends up in Dallas with Dak Prescott. Right, Woody?
Okay.
I disagree. Thank you very much, because Davante's salary alone, along with what they've already paid CeeDee Lamb, makes it impossible. Jerry and Steven are not going to spend that type of money on two receivers. They're just not. So Davante Adams to the Cowboys is an old story, and it's a typical usage of the Cowboys that players all like to use. Their agents like to say, "Hell yeah, we're going to come to Dallas. We're going to come to," and they boost up their costs. That's all that is, and it's something that I'm so tired of. I'm absolutely tired of seeing that. If you understand how the Cowboys operate, Davante Adams is not going to be a Dallas Cowboy. He should go to the Washington Commanders.
Yeah.
Well, I've said this on the Off the Dome show. I said it last week. As much as Davante wants to leave the Raiders, and we're all rejoicing that he wants to get out, but I want to make this very, very clear to Davante without saying it. This is what you get. You really, if we're being honest, if we really want to hold you accountable, you should stay there in Vegas. I'm serious.
Yep.
Because you were the one that wasn't comfortable with what Green Bay was giving you. So you decided that you want to make more money. Well, guess what? If you want to make more money, there's teams that are desperate enough to pay whatever you want. You'll just be miserable in the process. I.e. the Raiders.
Had he chosen the Cowboys at that point, that would have been a different ballgame, and then CeeDee Lamb would not be the receiver that he is today. He would have been getting his money, but not as much money as he got.
Because he's still the number two.
And that's right. He would have been the number two guy. But he didn't choose to come to Dallas. When the Dallas Cowboys were going 12-5, he could have come there. He could have come to Dallas. But no, didn't do it.
So,
because he wanted to be emotional and get paid. He wanted to work with his buddy and get the bag. He wanted to be with Derek Carr as college quarterback.
Well, hey, this goes to something that's on my bottom 5 teams that I'll touch on shortly.
Okay. So, like I said, I just want Davante Adams to own it. Whatever he decides to do, just own it and take accountability for it. Because you should have been held accountable when you decided to head to the Vegas Raiders. I don't care who's at quarterback. Unless it's Patrick Mahomes, unless it's CJ Stroud, I don't care if you're best friends with them. Does it lead to winning? Does it lead to production? And the answers were no, and you knew that. So if you decide to go to New York and pair with Aaron Rodgers, it shouldn't be a surprise when you don't get the ball consistently. If you go to New Orleans, which is not even an option anymore because Derek Carr is hurt, but if you were to go there, you're going to be even more pissed off that you're not getting the ball. And you're not going to be winning. So what good does it do? All I'm saying is, if you want familiarity, go ahead and get used to losing because you're not going to find it. You're not going to find any winning over there. So why don't you just go to a team like Baltimore, who could use a deep threat?
Get out of my head.
As a deep threat, you have Zay Flowers on the intermediate routes. You have Devontae, who's a route machine, no matter where you place him. You still have Mark Andrews. You still have Isaiah Likely. You got Derrick Henry in the backfield. Y'all starting to get a lot of steam right now after starting the year 0-2. Why not go to a team where you will actually get production and win? But what do I know? This is my favorite part of the show, and it does me great joy to talk about the teams that don't deserve any of their fan base's joy these days.
The unshine time.
Oh yes. So we're gonna talk about the bottom 5, and Greg, what does your bottom 5 look like, man? What we got here?
My bottom 5. I don't know if we have the graphic or not. Guess not. Okay. So my bottom 5 teams are the they're at number 32. I still have the Jacksonville Jaguars there. Then I have the Patriots, the Dolphins, the Bengals, and the Tennessee Titans are my bottom 5 teams. Now, the Jacksonville Jaguars actually won a football game. They did win. And all I've heard since Trevor Lawrence and Trevor Etienne were drafted together out of Clemson is, he had to have his running back with him and all this jazz, just like Jamar Chase needed to be with Joe Burrow. 1-4, guys. 1-4, because you're playing with your buddies from college. But Tank Bigsby put up 105 yards on the ground for the Jacksonville Jaguars this Sunday. Tank Bigsby is a very good running back, and he should be used a whole lot more by the Jacksonville Jaguars than he had been. This is what I talk about. I don't like that whole friendship thing from college and all that other jazz. It's just the most asinine thing I've ever heard of. When you're a professional player, you play with who the team tells you to play with, and that's that. You don't need your little buddy with you.
Okay. It's an interesting bottom 5 there. Steve, what does your bottom 5 look like, man?
Well, I went in a much different direction of bottom 5 teams. Yes, it is very easy to just look at the 32 to 27 teams and say that these are the bottom 5 teams. I am going with the direction of teams that were meant and supposedly on an upswing throughout the preseason and going into the start of the season, and teams that were supposed to be contenders, but thus far through 5 weeks, they all look like pretenders. So at the bottom of the list, not so much. The Raiders weren't exactly supposed to do anything, but their season thus far through 5 weeks has been so tumultuous. They're talking about trading their top asset in Devontae Adams, their top wide receiver. I'm hearing rumors that they're talking about maybe potentially trading Max Crosby. They're not sure of whether Antonio Pierce, the guy that they just decided was their head coach, is not going to get fired himself. So everything is kind of a disaster out in Las Vegas. They're changing their quarterback. Aiden O'Connell is now the starter, and Minshew's been benched. They don't have a direction. They don't have a clue what they're doing. So I've got them at 5 of my bottom 5. Of course, the Jacksonville Jaguars, were supposed to take a step forward and in the direction of becoming more of a contender after signing Lawrence to his big contract. And they have done nothing but squander and almost be winless and have looking like a team with no hope. Then there's the 49ers, who were last year's Super Bowl runner-up NFC representative, who were supposed to march right back there. Not so fast. Pump the brakes. Doesn't look like that's happening. Yes, there are some injuries that are contributing factors, but the 49ers do not look like the 49ers of last year. They look like they're in need of a lot of help, and the other teams in the NFC West look like they have caught up, including the Arizona Cardinals. So the 49ers, I think, are actually in trouble. They're in the middle of my bottom 5. Then the New York Jets, who, of course, just fired their head coach and have Aaron Rodgers, who's supposed to be the GOAT and the most accurate quarterback all time, fresh off of, three interceptions in a single game. I believe that's the second time in Aaron Rodgers' illustrious career, maybe the third he's ever had 3 interceptions in a single game. Aaron Rodgers, the guy who's had 3 interceptions for an entire year, Mr. 4-time MVP. Yeah, no, things are not looking well in the New York City for the Jets. They are not taking off. They are landing and staying on the ground. They are grounded as my number 2 team in the power rankings. Then, of course, we've got ourselves in the AFC, probably the biggest disappointment of the year, the Cincinnati Bengals, who have made a Super Bowl appearance, who were supposed to be making their way back to being a Super Bowl and playoff contending team. They've got 1 win, and they don't look like they have a clue. Joe Burrow himself came out and said, "We're not a championship team." I'm sorry, the leader of your team just came out and told you you're not a championship team. Yeah, you're number 1 on my non-power list.
Oh, okay. I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all.
I refuse to put the Raiders down that low, though. I refuse to.
Why is that, Greg?
Because Ajmer cheers for the Raiders, and I'm supporting Ajmer.
Aw, that's so nice. Even
Yeah.
a Cowboys fan. Good for
Well,
you.
hey, there are only 2 nations in football. There's Cowboy Nation and there's Raider Nation. Those are the only 2 nations allowed. That's it.
You just can't help yourself, can you, Greg? It's okay. It's all right. I feel like off of that alone, that should conclude the show. Because how dare you say that? There's only 2 nations. Are you kidding me? Anyways, this is the conclusion of the Rankings Roundtable show. Greg, let us know where they can find you.
They can find me. Go ahead, Steve.
No bottom 5 for you, Thomas? Did we already get yours?
Oh, no. Oh, no. What we got, Greg?
Well, I'm going to be here at teamnbsmedia.com. I'll be on the last word on Saturday, talking about college football yet again. And yes, I will have an article for the Cowboys and the Lions game this Sunday. But that's about it.
All right, Steve, where can they find you at, man?
Yeah, I am Steve Rogers with Team NBS Media.com. All my works are there, whether they're written or video or on featured as a guest on any of the shows that we do here at Team NBS Media, right here at the Rankings Roundtable, the Mask Podcast, any other show that Team NBS lets me come on and jump on and be a part of. I'll be there. You'll see me. My written work is there on teamnbsmedia.com. You can find me tweeting at the real Mr. Rogers 814. Yeah, it is the Vikings bye week, so I don't have a preview of a game to write, but I might do a little advanced preview now of the post-bye ease of the Vikings schedule from here on out.
Okay. All right. And I am your host, Thomas Brown Jr. You can find me at _ terrific Tom with an _ at the end because it's infinite around here. On Instagram, on X. That's where you can find me at. I am co-host of the Off the Dome show that airs Fridays, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, co-hosted by me and Brock Vieira. I'm also the host of, obviously, the Rankings Roundtable show. So, you name it, you'll probably find me. If you have any questions that you want to ask about your team or your fan base, no problem hitting me up. We'll talk about it. All right?
And lose the damn sunglasses.
Hey, my Eagles going to have to – they're going to have to show something.
Hey, Brown should be back this week. There's a start.
Well, until then –
Deshaun Watson better not have a good day. He better not.
Come on, the Browns. Come on
now. That'd be just terrible.
They were team 6 on my lower 5.
See. So until I see the conclusion of Week 6 between the Eagles and the Browns, determines whether these shades stay on.
I will be embarrassed by having the Eagles at 7 this week if they lose to the Browns. I will be embarrassed.
I'm embarrassed for you.
Well, see,
So, yep. Thank y'all so much for joining us. Thank y'all for tuning in. Again, it's 8:35 every Wednesday. We'll be right here. Until next time, see y'all later.
Team NBS.